It's a question for millions of parents. While you're at work, who's watching your kids? Tonight, in Sinton at a daycare center, there is now a viral video that prompted a police investigation. It involves a daycare operator throwing a ball at a child. You're going to meet the mother, and you may hear from what the daycare center has to say. But will we know more than a viral video ever says? Here's Bill Churchwell.
She's able to, at least tell us if she has an ouchie or something, a boo-boo. She's able to boo-boo.
It's this video that has Josefa Perez furious.
Immediately pointed out my child.
She shared with us these clips circulating online, pointing out her 21-month-old daughter, Callie. That's her in the striped shirt and black pants on the playground.
Eventually we saw her hit multiple times by both of her teachers with what looked like a dodgeball.
She says what concerns her the most is the manner in which the ball was thrown.
It wasn't just the actual throwing, it was the fact that they were overhand throwing. For a child her age, overhand throwing is not, it's intentional.
At one point, you can see the toddler fall to the ground. The alleged incident happening here at this Head Start program on the playground located at Avenue B and 4th Streets. When we reached out to officials with the program, we were told they would have no comment, referring us to an attorney in San Antonio. I contacted that attorney by phone, who said he was made aware of the situation and that it has been addressed. He tells us it's a personnel matter, and that's as far as he will go. The New Discoveries Head Start Center provides free child care for those who qualify. It's listed as being part of the nonprofit organization Community Action Corporation of South Texas.
CPS has been contacted. She went to Driscoll Children's Hospital to get assessed by the care team.
Kelly's still wearing her bracelet from the hospital. The toddler's mom says she has also filed a report with police.
It was brought to us by that parent, and I know that the videos they're online as well, so we have viewed them, and the district attorney's office has viewed them as well.
Lieutenant Daniel Alcala with the Sinton Police Department says it will be up to the DA's office whether any charges will be filed.
We take it as a serious matter, especially involving children.
Sinton resident Kathy Jo Suarez has also seen the video. She's a mom of a 5-year-old. Her child attended the same daycare.
You hurt for the babies because these are younger than my child. These are toddlers who can't come home and tell you what happened.
She says she has her own law enforcement case currently pending regarding a separate incident at the daycare when her child came home to tell her this.
So the one day when she said my teacher hurt my arm, and my child was able to tell me.
Suarez has since removed her daughter from the daycare. Meantime, Perez says physically her daughter appears to be okay and hopes it's something she won't remember. She tells us she has met with the Head Start staff.
We have notified them that they lost their trust. How do you take your child back to the same place if they get hurt?
Bill Churchwell, 3 News.
Well, let me tell you, before we go to our common sense alert, in a near future, we're going to show you a Dateline story all about daycare operators who you trust. So, what can you do? How can you do your homework? We'll let you know. So, that's on the near future. Common sense alert. Basically, if you want to become a child care at a daycare center or whatever, you need to go through training. You need to know about child abuse and child endangerment. If you do those things, your daycare center can be shut. Your daycare center can and will be shut down if necessary. So therefore, what you need to understand here is that just because you love children so much, you also got to understand CPS, which is Child Protective Services. And last season, we told you the difference between child abuse, child neglect, child abandonment. We showed you body cam footage about parents being arrested for child endangerment or child neglect. They were arrested because they chose to have their kids wander around the street. Basically, what common sense would tell you is you need to watch your kids. And child abuse is just hitting someone. Like if you hit a child in a ball and it's severe injury, that's a good reason for CPS to report it. But here she's doing okay, but I wouldn't even be surprised if they went to the local. I mean, this would have been handled properly instead of just calling the media saying, hey, my child this and this and this. It's as simple as, I don't know why it's simple, but the thing we have to understand here is that we all love our kids. And when I go to a daycare center or Head Start program, I want to make sure that my child is treated properly by a daycare staff, not an abusive one. It's like I said on a future episode, we're going to focus in on licensed daycare operators who have been arrested but were then allowed to continue operating their daycare centers. That's on a future show because this is really mind-opening for me. It happened after a murder because background checks need to happen, certain crimes. We'll tell you all about that in a future experience. Still ahead, what did you have for breakfast? Can you imagine ever having something else besides bacon and eggs? We'll tell you. Also, mistakes can happen in the medical area. Just ask this. Mistakes can happen in medical profession. Just ask this man who lost his wife. Stone Phillips has that story. Stay with us. Have you ever heard of Saturday school? If you heard of Saturday school, you ever heard of Saturday court? Saturday court is a new thing coming here in Corpus Christi. It's to where people who have busy work schedules cannot take those days off. So Saturday court is a way to help out. You're about to meet some people who say it may help them out because of work schedules. But could it help you out But remember, courts happen during the weekdays, but Saturday court, it could be a new thing. But would it help everybody who may have a flexible schedule? Here's Brian Burns.
I've been on, I think for 6 months now, and today was my last day. So, just have a clean record.
Raul Adame was at court for ending his probation for a speeding ticket. He thinks Saturday court would help lots of people like him.
Some people can't always make it during the week because they have strict work schedules where they can't just call off. So I think it helps them better out on the weekends when they have way more free time than during the week instead of having to be in a constant rush.
The city announced Saturday community court will be held at libraries once a month to help out people. The first of these community courts will be held this Saturday here in the meeting room at the Ben McDonald Library. You can talk to a judge, you can set up payment plans, resolve any active warrants, whatever you might need that you normally do during the week.
I have seen some traffic come through where they do say, I have work, I can't get off, I just started my job, so they're on a probationary period, and I completely understand that. And so we want to be able to work with those individuals and give them the opportunity to take care of their cases in time, not incur any warrants or any collection fees for their inability to come into court.
The first community court is set for Saturday from 10 to 2 at McDonald Library, and then they'll rotate public library locations throughout the city each month.
Just really get all their needs met. We're going to be there ready and accessible for them to take care of it without having to take time off of work.
Brian Burns, 3 News.
And I really think it could, I think it could help out. So, if you have weekends off, try to go to the Saturday court at a library. That way you can help out with your probation or payment plans, whatever. There's no need to raise common sense about this issue because I think it's a great idea. How I feel about this is just basically, I will not say. Alright, you remember the COVID? Do you remember the COVID-19 pandemic? If you remember the COVID-19 pandemic, it was to where all teachers and all schools had to go directly to Zoom because of the pandemic. 3 years ago, when it was the first day back at school, this teacher, probably elementary school in Texas, they lost the internet and left the virtual classroom. And they won't even stop talking about toast. Sounds kind of suspicious. Take a look.
Can everyone hear me? But we'll try and at least discuss.
Guys, what happened? She left the meeting. Yeah, she left the meeting. It kicked her out the internet. Yeah. You guys see me? All of you guys. I see that there's a little record sign at the top of the screen. So the teacher's recording this. She can watch us and see that we're not behaving. Yeah, I know. And the principal. Yeah, we know. That should be serious, John. I'm just moving my mic because I don't want to talk. So we should be behaved. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. My mom told that. I mean, goodness. Because if the principal finds out that the video of if we were being bad right now, she would see us being very bad, and we would be in big trouble with our parents. Well, what is talking? Those means we're in trouble. Not toast. That she doesn't have her number. Our phone. And whoever said we'll be toast, whoever said that, I'll maybe have toast for breakfast tomorrow. I said that. That sounds really bad. They don't. That sounds fine. They don't know our number. I said with toast and egg. That sounds really good with lettuce. Not eggs.
Wow. Alright. Common sense alert from back in 3 years ago. If you are having if you had some technical difficulties, you should have canceled the class and then figured something out, or talk with your manager or talk with your boss. That way he or she could tell you what to do, like, oh, continue class, or just cancel class, or go back the next day, or we'll get tech support out here. Instead of just leaving a video camera on being recorded. Well, we don't know what else happened, but the teacher probably found out about it, and I don't know what happened. Up next, this person says that his wife died at a hospital because of these medical mistakes. If you remember, we told you about little Ben Kolb, who died of medical mistakes. But what would the hospital find out about his wife? Stone Phillips has that story. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's not often that we do an issue about doctors making mistakes. If you recall last season, we brought you the story of young Ben Kolb, who died by a medical mistake by a doctor. But this story we're about to see is way different than Ben Kolb. It's about a young girl who went to the operating room and some doctors who made mistakes. Tonight, you're going to meet the sister and the husband of Lisa Smart, as both tell the story about Lisa Smart, who was smart enough to go into the operating room but wasn't smart enough to know about medical mistakes. Here's Stone Phillips.
We shared everything. No secrets. Best friends as well as sisters.
Her sister will tell you that Lisa Smart always lived up to her name. A straight-A student, she went on to become a financial analyst in the financial capital of the world, New York, New York. Not only was Lisa smart, she was devoted to her career and to her husband. New York City police officer Anderson Smart.
Lisa was a very outgoing person. She loved life.
You knew each other for a long time.
Yeah, ever since we were 15 years old.
They met at this fast food restaurant in Queens, where they both worked. 10 years later, on July 4th, 1992, they got married.
All my family and friends admired their marriage, and they used to say things like, if I was guaranteed to have a marriage like your sister's, I would get married tomorrow.
He loved her and she loved him.
Yeah, and they were just alike, so they got along perfectly.
Their marriage was working out, and so was Lisa. As busy as she was on the job and fixing up their dream house in the suburbs, she still found time to stay fit.
She was in the gym more than I was.
She kept herself in shape.
Yeah.
Lisa's health was fine, except for something that sounded scarier than it actually was. A fibroid tumor. It's a non-cancerous growth in the uterus that occurs in 4 out of every 10 women in the country. Not all of them need surgery, but it is recommended for women planning to have children. Kids were definitely in the picture.
Definitely.
When the time was right.
Yeah.
And at age 30, that time was getting closer. So Lisa decided to have the operation. Is this a life-threatening surgery?
In general, it's not.
Dr. Susan Haas teaches at Harvard Medical School, and though she was not involved in Lisa's case, she has performed dozens of fibroid removal surgeries. Fluid is pumped into the uterus to expand it. Then, with lights dimmed for better viewing of a television monitor, the doctor maneuvers a probe equipped with a tiny camera and an electrified scraping device back and forth until the tumor is vaporized. For most women, this is into surgery and out the same day.
For most women, this is a day surgery. This is a safe procedure.
But that's not the way it turned out for Lisa Smart. On November 20th, 1997, she put her trust in a highly regarded Manhattan hospital, a surgeon she liked, and a system of safeguards patients everywhere take for granted. They all failed her.
I never thought in a million years that I would go somewhere with her and leave without her. I can't understand why things happen the way they did.
Lisa's story is about more than one surgery gone wrong. It's about some surprisingly common practices most patients know nothing about, like who's actually in the operating room watching or even working on you while you're asleep. With new high-tech medical equipment coming on the market every day, how much training do doctors and nurses really get before they use it? And if something tragic does happen, will you ever get the full story, or half-truths designed to protect reputations and the bottom line? In the end, this story is about patients' rights and medical wrongs. Like many patients today, Lisa found a doctor to perform the fibroid surgery by leafing through her HMO book. She picked Dr. Robert Klinger, who did his surgeries at one of New York's most respected hospitals, Beth Israel, and came highly recommended. The day before the scheduled surgery, they met in Klinger's 11th floor office here on Park Avenue.
He was a very nice guy. She felt very comfortable around him.
So she was confident. Good doctor, good hospital, she was in good hands.
Good hands, yeah.
The next day, the Friday before Thanksgiving, 1997, Lisa and her husband drove into Manhattan to Beth Israel's outpatient center, where the operation would take place. Inside, Lisa filled out this hospital form and checked the box requesting more information about the risks of anesthesia.
She was extremely nervous. She had never been under anesthesia, so she called me to ask me what it was like. So I kind of reassured her.
Lisa also felt reassured after talking to her anesthesiologist, and again to Dr. Klinger.
He said he's going to remove a fibroid and it'll be over 1, 2, 3. No problem. You're going to recover, you're going to wake up, your husband's going to be at your side, and you guys are going to go home.
And with those comforting words, shortly before 3 p.m., Lisa was ready. And when it was time to say goodbye,
I love you. And she went off for the surgery.
2 hours later, Anderson says Dr. Klinger came out into the waiting room and told him the surgery was over, everything was fine, and Lisa just needed another hour or so to recover. But the fact is, when the lights came up in the OR, doctors were shocked to see Lisa's face and neck bloated beyond belief. Anderson wasn't told about that, but the look on Dr. Klinger's face told him something wasn't right.
He didn't look comfortable. He looked nervous. I could see it in his eyes.
Even though he was telling her everything was fine.
Yeah, it's like a gut feeling. Something's telling me, like, nah, everything's not fine. There's something this guy isn't telling you.
At about 6 p.m., an hour after surgery, Dr. Klinger and a nurse came back into the waiting room, And this time, Anderson says they looked shaken and physically spent.
They're both soaking wet.
Sweat?
Yeah, like they were really physically working. And that's when he told me that my wife wasn't breathing.
Did they explain what was going on?
He told me that she went into cardiac arrest. I asked him why, how. He didn't know.
Did the nurse say anything?
She didn't say anything. She just stared at me. She didn't say a word.
As a police officer, Anderson Smart was used to being in control. The cop in him may have wanted to demand some answers, but he didn't do that.
I said, they're doctors, they're good doctors. This is a good hospital. We're in Beth Israel, for Christ's sake, so, you know, these people know what they're doing.
Around 7:30, 2.5 hours after the operation ended, a code blue, or hospital-wide alert, was called. Nothing, including CPR, was getting Lisa's heart pumping again. So doctors decided to transport her by ambulance to Beth Israel's emergency room, several blocks away.
I saw them whiz her out really quickly.
Anderson followed closely in another ambulance.
I could see the crew in the other ambulance working on her. I could see them squeezing the bag on her face.
At 7:45, they pulled up to the emergency room entrance. Showing no pulse and no blood pressure, Lisa was rushed inside. Anderson waited. He remembers taking a walk and praying. At 8:24, 5.5 hours after her supposedly routine surgery began, Lisa Smart was pronounced dead. Dr. Klinger came out to talk to the family.
His eyes were really red. He had been crying. You could see he was crying. Very distraught. And that's when we knew. He didn't have to tell me anything. I already knew that she didn't make it.
Did he say what it cost him?
He never said. We asked him why, what happened. Dr. Klinger just kept shaking his head. I don't know.
And that's all the explanation you got that night?
That's all we got.
That's all they got. When we come back, the hospital tells the other side of the story. Will we know then what caused Lisa Smart's death? Stone Phillips concludes the story. Stay with us. Now the conclusion of our story. Anderson Smart did not know for a full year after Lisa Smart had died. Remember, it was just a routine surgery, a thyroid in the uterus. But during that year, a state investigator, which you're about to meet, came up the cause. Will we know then what caused Lisa Smart to die? What does the hospital have to say? Once again, Stone Phillips.
Anderson Smart's last glimpse of his wife was in the back of an ambulance racing to the ER. After she died, he couldn't bear to see her.
I want to remember her the way, I saw her when she went for the operation.
He wanted to remember Lisa full of life, but he needed something else. Something only this man and his team of investigators would give him. The full story of Lisa's death.
She put a certain faith in Beth Israel, and they breached that faith.
Wayne Ostin oversees hospital care for the state of New York. He spearheaded the health department's year-long investigation into Lisa Smart's death. What Ostin found and revealed in this investigative report was that even before Lisa's life was taken from her, her rights as a patient were trampled on. Information that could have caused her to postpone or cancel the operation. She was never told that a salesman with no formal medical training would be counted on to play an active role in the OR. That besides Dr. Klinger, a second surgeon, this one in hot water with state medical authorities, would also be operating on her. And finally, that the doctors would be using a new piece of equipment for the first time, similar to other surgical devices they had used, but with one major difference. As you're about to see, the equipment worked fine. According to state investigators, it was Dr. Klinger, along with Beth Israel Hospital, that failed Lisa, with their medical blunders and blatant disregard for her right to know.
I think Dr. Klinger betrayed Lisa. He betrayed her. He should have let us know. Look, a salesman will be present and, it's the first time we're using this piece of equipment in this hospital. He cheated her.
It all began at Dr. Klinger's Park Avenue office on November 10th, 1997, 10 days before Lisa's surgery. That day, Klinger and one of his partners met with a medical equipment salesman from a company called Ethicon.
The salesman was showing them the latest in fibroid removal technology.
Offers advantages compared to current methods.
Seen in this promotional video, the new equipment approved by the federal government in 1996 and used in hospitals across the country is considered a significant safety advance because, unlike other devices, it can be used with saline or salt water, which blends more safely with blood. According to the state report, Dr. Klinger and his partner were impressed with the increased safety of the device and both agreed to use it in a future procedure. 9 days later, on November 19th, Dr. Klinger and the salesman spoke again by phone. According to the salesman, Klinger said he had a, quote, ideal case for the new machine. It was Lisa Smart, whose surgery was scheduled for the next day.
That's how it's left on the 19th. On the 20th, the salesman arrives in the OR with the equipment with 2 stickers approving the equipment.
Although Beth Israel was planning to buy the new equipment, according to the state, the hospital had not given final approval. So how those authorization stickers got there remains unknown.
It's still a mystery to the hospital how those 2 stickers were obtained and placed on the equipment.
And without those stickers, it wouldn't have been in the OR.
That's right.
That's because the stickers would indicate that not only has the machine been fully approved, but the hospital staff has been trained to use it. The operating room nurses told investigators that when they saw the machine, they voiced concern about their lack of training to the nurse in charge.
The charge nurse says, well, don't worry about it. The salesman will be available and can operate the controls of the equipment during the procedure.
A salesman operating the controls? As strange as it may sound, salespeople are often present during operations to answer questions about new devices. But Ostin says the patient has a right to know about it and approve it. And state law does not allow sales representatives to touch or operate equipment or participate in the surgical procedure. Did anyone tell you that salesman might be operating a piece of equipment involved in the procedure because none of the doctors or nurses were trained on it?
No one disclosed that information to us.
But according to state investigators, that's exactly what happened. Although only the surgeons worked the probe that vaporized the fibroid inside the uterus, hospital staff in the OR say the salesman pressed control buttons on the new machine and squeezed a saline bag used in the procedure. If true, even though the salesman never performed any of the surgery or operated on Lisa in any way, by touching any equipment during the procedure, he broke his own company policy and the law.
I didn't even know that people can be present and observe an operation. I didn't even know that. And I think patients, they have a right to know. You have a right to know.
The salesman declined Dateline's request for an interview, but according to his company, he insists he did not operate the equipment or manipulate the saline bag. And the company added, "We are convinced that neither the machine nor the actions of our representative played any part in Lisa Smart's death." Wayne Ostin agrees nothing the salesman did during surgery caused the death, but there is no doubt in his mind the salesman acted inappropriately.
Beyond just touching the controls of the procedure, we do have 4 people telling us that the salesman squeezed the IV bag to increase the amount of fluid, the pressure of the fluid going into the patient. We have the nurses telling us that, we have the anesthesiologist telling us that, and we also have Dr. Sklar telling us that.
And just who is Dr. Sklar? Well, that's something else Lisa and her husband were never told about. Mark Sklar, seen here in a video he produced about pregnancy and fitness, was the partner who joined Klinger for the salesman's presentation prior to Lisa's surgery. And during the operation, Sklar was there to try out the new equipment and perform part of the surgery.
It almost sounds as if this was a product demonstration using Lisa Smart.
It clearly was the case with respect to Sklar's role in this.
Hey, give it a try, see what you think.
Try it out and see what works for you.
And nobody ever tells Lisa Smart or her family.
That's right.
Like most patients going in for surgery, Lisa signed a standard consent form giving Klinger permission to bring in associates or assistants to perform the procedure. But Ostin says Klinger should have told Lisa someone else would be operating on her as well.
Any patient has a right to know who the surgeons who are going to be responsible for their case.
And do the doctors have an obligation under the law to disclose that information?
Definitely.
You never even met Dr. Sklar or knew he was going to be in the operating room?
No. Never heard of him.
Or of his troubled past. At the time of Lisa's operation, Dr. Sklar, who also declined Dateline's request for an interview, was on state probation following charges of negligence during the labor and deliveries of 6 patients. Although probation did not prohibit Sklar from being in Lisa's operating room, Lisa's husband says knowing about him would have made a difference.
If we had known about his history, Lisa definitely wouldn't have gotten the procedure done.
But there she was, in the OR with Klinger and Sklar, the nurses and the salesman, with equipment no one had been trained on. And a monumental error was about to happen. Though Klinger and Sklar deny it, nurses told state investigators they started warning the surgeons that too much fluid was going into Lisa's body, with precious little coming out. The fluid, delivered not through the new machine, but through a separate system of tubes and valves, was being monitored by a nurse, who, according to Ostin, said she noticed the problem about halfway through the surgery.
At one point, the outflow stops completely, and she warns and tells both doctors that, look, nothing is coming out of the patient. And at that point, Dr. Klinger says to her, all right already, we've heard you, don't worry about it.
All right, already, I heard you.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
But there was plenty to worry about. Remember when the lights came up after surgery, doctors were stunned to see Lisa's face and neck grotesquely bloated. Well, it turns out there'd been a massive buildup of fluid. How much? According to these medical records, 9 liters went in, while only 1 came out, which means Lisa had the equivalent of 4 large soda bottles swelling her body. More than 2 gallons. She was literally drowning from the inside. While it's a nurse's job to keep track of the fluid levels, the surgeon controls the different valves for fluid in and out of the body. Klinger told investigators he kept the outflow valve half open at all times so fluid could leave Lisa's body. But according to the anesthesiologist, that's not what Klinger told him immediately following the surgery. According to the state report, the anesthesiologist recalled that when Klinger first saw Lisa's massive swelling, he commented that it must have been caused by his keeping the outflow valve closed during the surgery.
Completely closed. Completely closed, which is different than what Klinger had told us earlier.
Do you think Dr. Klinger has given you the full story?
No, I don't think we got an accurate picture from Dr. Klinger.
Dr. Klinger declined our request for an interview. In this letter, he told us, not a day goes by that I do not think of Lisa, her husband, and her family, and that painful day will stay in my memory forever. A number of legal proceedings prevents me from commenting further. If warnings about the fluid buildup were given repeatedly, how could a reputable doctor like Klinger ignore them? Ostin says the answer came from Beth Israel's OBGYN department chief, Dr. Alan Jacobs, who got a phone call from Klinger the night Lisa died.
During that conversation, Dr. Jacobs asked Dr. Klinger, well, weren't you worried about the input and the outflow? Klinger informed him he didn't think he needed to be worried about it, about the amount of fluid, because it was only saline.
He didn't need to worry because it was only saline? Ostin says when he heard those words, it finally came together, why Klinger seemed so unconcerned with the fluid levels. Remember what was unique about the new machine he was using for the first time? Unlike other fibroid removal systems, this one works with saline, which is safer for the body, but only in controlled amounts. You still have to monitor the fluid balance.
There's no question. This is true for any kind of patient care in which patients are getting fluid into their body.
Doctors like Harvard's Susan Haas say just because it's saline doesn't mean you can be any less careful about fluid overload.
The issue of too much saline infusion is something that we all learned back in medical school and residency, and that still applies.
In fact, Ethicon's own product information sheet warns that fluid monitoring is required even when normal saline is used. In the end, Ostin believes Klinger let a safety advance, the use of saline, lull him into a careless mistake, turning what should have been a drip into a drowning.
The machine is not what killed her, it's the people that were working the machine, the hands that were involved.
But there's one more question that troubles Lisa's husband. Even after the fluid overload, could Lisa have been saved? What Anderson Smart wasn't told that night was that just minutes after the surgery was over, with Lisa severely bloated, the anesthesiologist, Dr. Gregory Kinsella, removed her breathing tube, allowing her to resume breathing on her own. Her condition then began to deteriorate. 50 minutes later, the doctor reinserted the tube, but Lisa's heart and lungs were failing. Dr. Kinsella, who declined Dateline's request for comment, told state investigators he removed the breathing tube because Lisa's vital signs were stable and she was responsive. Osteen says two anesthesiologists who reviewed the case for the state disagreed with each other about Kinsella's decision-making. And without a consensus against him, Osteen said the state could not criticize Kinsella for his care of Lisa Smart. Last November 5th, when the state finally released its 12-page investigative report, it was headline news, a scathing condemnation of a medical system gone horribly awry. And for the family, the first time they realized how little Beth Israel had told them about all that had gone wrong.
At the time that we got the Department of Health's report, it was almost a year after Lisa's death, and all we had been able to get out of Beth Israel was 4 pages of lab results.
Days after the state report came out, Anderson Smart's attorney, Linda Cronin, filed a lawsuit against Drs. Klinger, Sklar, and Kinsella, Beth Israel, and Johnson & Johnson, which owns Ethicon, whose salesman brought doctors that new piece of equipment.
It's our position that the entire procedure was to blame. The machine itself did not cause her death. The excessive infusion of saline caused her death.
In the wake of the Lisa Smart case, Beth Israel set a strict guideline, automatically shutting down operations of this kind when any fluid imbalance reaches 1.5 liters. Remember, Lisa had more than 5 times that in her body.
I'm sure if you interviewed staff at Beth Israel, they would be embarrassed. They didn't provide Lisa Smart with the care that she deserved.
But Osteen says there's another issue the hospital should address. Who it puts in charge of finding and reporting the truth when things go wrong, as they did with Lisa. When Beth Israel conducted its own internal investigation of Lisa's death, as required by law, Osteen says the hospital acknowledged that mistakes were made. But most of what you heard about tonight, Beth Israel never mentioned in its report. Nothing about the salesman, nothing about one of the surgeons being on probation, or the lack of training on that new equipment, or the warnings nurses said they gave, which if heeded, could have saved Lisa's life. And why did none of that come out in the hospital's report? Osteen says it's because instead of handing the investigation over to doctors dedicated to improving patient care, Beth Israel gave it to lawyers and insurance people who specialize in limiting liability and damage control.
They didn't care about the patient, I can tell you that much, or the patient's family.
What do you think they cared about?
They cared about a cover-up. They cared about, not letting the public find out what happened.
Beth Israel declined all of Dateline's interview requests, but a spokesman told us the hospital does not dispute anything in Wayne Osteen's state report. Last fall, the hospital's chairman told the New York Times, "We have a well-deserved reputation for providing outstanding care, but obviously, we did not give it in this incident." As for Lisa's family, her mother, sister, and brother, and her husband, they hope by telling Lisa's story, patients will better understand their medical rights, especially the right to know, and to ask any question that comes to mind.
Who will be present at the surgery? Is there any unusual piece of equipment that you're going to use that I should know about? Is everyone trained to use it? There's no such thing as a stupid question.
And no such thing as blind faith in the medical system either, for a man whose wife believes so strongly in a big city hospital that she trusted it with her life.
The irony in all of this is, we lived in Orange County, upstate New York, and my wife, she wouldn't have it done up there. She said, "Oh no, I'm not getting anything done up here in the suburb. No way. I'm going to the city. I'm going to a good hospital."
Several footnotes. First, if you need fibroid removal surgery, don't be afraid to have it done. The equipment you saw tonight is FDA approved, and the procedure is performed safely on thousands of women every year. As for Lisa Smart's case, Dateline has learned that all 3 of her doctors are being reviewed by New York's Office of Professional Medical Conduct. They could lose their licenses. They've also learned that a separate criminal investigation is underway. As for the salesman, his company tells us he's been transferred to another position while the legal proceedings continue. We should also note that all of the defendants named in Anderson Smart's lawsuit, the doctors, Beth Israel, and Johnson & Johnson, have denied the allegations made against them in the suit. And finally, Lisa Smart's sister Pam is pregnant with her first child. If it's a girl, she plans to name her Lisa. Coming up.
Dedicated to Lisa Smart. Is breakfast a really great battle for you? Up next, Josh Magnus is going to tell us you can have anything you want for breakfast. Sound too good to be true? Wait till you hear what the doctor has to say. Stay with us. Is breakfast the most important battle of the day? Fighting with the kids over what should be healthy or what's unhealthy? Sound too good to be true? What if he told you it was from a doctor who says you can have anything you want for breakfast? And I do mean anything. But what about waving the white flag and saying you can have whatever you want for breakfast? Like I said, the doctor you're going to meet has some suggestions. Like you could, instead of having bacon, eggs, pancakes, sausage, toast, French toast, whatever, you can have whatever you want. You can even have chips. You can have chips for breakfast, macaroni and cheese for breakfast, pepperoni. You can have whatever you want. Does that sound weird to you? Here's Josh Mankiewicz.
Eat.
Jacob, we gotta eat.
When kids balk at breakfast, parents bark back.
Jacob, I don't think it's good to go to school without eating breakfast.
At least eat your toast. You either gotta eat your toast or your cereal.
Gummy bear.
You like gummy bears for breakfast?
Gummy bears for breakfast?
There are millions and millions of American households in which mothers are fighting every morning with their children about eating breakfast.
Dr. Arthur Frank is an obesity expert at George Washington University. Although he doesn't advocate gummy bear breakfasts, he thinks parents are far too fussy about the food their children eat or don't eat.
It makes no difference what kinds of foods you select for breakfast, and there's nothing particularly healthy about using America's traditional breakfast foods at breakfast time.
Frank says parents need to relax. The conflict over breakfast is far from fruitful.
Eric, you know what? Could you put those trucks in your room?
Marta Schaefer Phillips is a social worker in Connecticut and a mother of two. Eric has no problem with breakfast. Sarah is a different story.
Sarah and I are very similar in how we approach the morning. We're both slow starters. She's not very hungry in the morning. She's not really that interested in breakfast food in general.
Instead of bickering about breakfast, Marta and Sarah have a truce, the terms of which are simple. Tortellini.
I don't think my mother would have approved of cheese tortellinis.
But Dr. Frank approves.
I don't see a particular reason why Sarah couldn't have tortellini or pizza or spaghetti or perhaps even strawberry shortcake.
And why not? Look at the USDA's food pyramid. Tortellini, pizza, and even strawberry shortcake supply a serving of important food groups: grains, dairy, and fruits. But wait a minute. Strawberry shortcake is a dessert, not a breakfast. What's next? Ice cream in the morning?
Why is it okay to have ice cream in the evening as part of your dessert, and it's not okay to have ice cream in the morning as part of your breakfast? It contains just as much fat, it contains just as much sugar in the evening as it does in the morning.
Dr. Frank says when choosing breakfast foods for your child, don't just say no. Focus on the nutritional value fun foods do have. Ice cream isn't ideal for any meal. It has a lot of fat and sugar. But it's not out of breakfast bounds. It is a serving of dairy, providing protein and calcium.
I can't think of anything that's really inappropriate for breakfast.
As long as you try to avoid too many fats and sugars, doctors recommend using your child's taste buds as a guide. But what if your child chooses none of the above? Few parents would feel comfortable allowing their child to skip breakfast. After all, isn't it the most important meal of the day? Well, maybe not. Studies suggest that for kids from impoverished homes who don't get enough nutritious food during the day, breakfast is important. But studies also show that for otherwise well-nourished children, breakfast is not a necessity. To eat or not to eat, the answer is up to them.
Fighting with your children has a much more adverse effect upon your child than having your child skip breakfast.
Giving your child choices, whether and what to eat, is key, even if those choices are, well, weird.
I feel better going to work and Sarah going to school knowing that she has a full stomach, full of cheese tortellinis.
If you're really concerned about your child's eating habits, Dr. Frank recommends you call your pediatrician or a licensed dietitian. And what's the latest on Sarah's plate? Now 7 years old, and she has changed her breakfast menu to macaroni and cheese.
I'm drooling over here. Where do I begin here? You kidding me? Where's the bacon? Where's the eggs? Where's the sausage? Where's the pancakes? The waffles? The French toast? Oatmeal? Cereal? All the traditional breakfast? Why gummy bears? Ice cream? Cheese tortellinis? Spaghetti? Strawberry shortcakes? Candy? Chips? And macaroni and cheese? Come on, get real. Eat real breakfast. Pop-Tarts. I eat Pop-Tarts sometimes every day for breakfast. I sometimes have eggs, sausage, and bacon with some steak. I mean, inappropriate things for breakfast. I mean, try Googling. If you want to try Googling foods for breakfast, if you were to Google this, you would find you can eat breakfast cereals, pancakes, waffles, toasted marshmallow muffins, fruit juice, toasted pastries, scones, sweet non-fat yogurt. Those are the worst. That's the 10 worst breakfast foods you can eat. I mean, cereal, I mean, I would count cereal as breakfast. I mean, those are the worst. Granola bars, that's the worst. Processed gluten-free. But there are 20 healthy breakfast foods, and we're going to focus in around a few. So let's take a look at some few. You have Greek yogurt. Eggs. Oatmeal. Fresh berries. That's a fruit, and it goes into the food group. Chia seeds. I have no idea what those are. Nuts. Flax seeds. You can put them in a smoothie, or yogurt, whatever. Green tea. Coffee. It can also reduce the effects of diabetes, plus the caffeine in coffee will increase your metabolic rate, thereby allowing you to burn fat. Cottage cheese. Make some cottage cheese anomaly, you got yourself a good breakfast. There's protein shakes. Okay. Granola. Reduce your blood sugar levels and enhance collagen. Quinoa. It's a superfood. You can try. You give a bowl of quinoa instead of oatmeal. I might as well try that. Salmon and quinoa for breakfast. I might try that. Spinach. It's an excellent source of vitamin A, K, folate, magnesium, copper, iron, B, vitamins, potassium, calcium, vitamin C, phosphorus, zinc, protein, and choline, which means it packs a pretty impressive punch to your health. You can make some smoothie, you got an egg, some steamed for breakfast. You can have make some you can have broccoli for breakfast. You can have bananas for breakfast. Peel banana, enjoy it as it is. Sweet potatoes. You can make some sweet potatoes in a bowl of oatmeal. Avocado. And finally, you ready for this? Black beans. The healthiest breakfast ever. So, if you're thinking about eating a good breakfast, these are the healthy meals for you. We'll also have to list the healthy breakfast meals on our web newsletter at givemeabreak.substack.com for all health tips and information. So, like Stone said, if you're concerned about here's the advice for you. If you're concerned about your child's eating habits, contact a pediatrician or a licensed dietitian. And if you want to have like a breakfast, knock your lights out. Do whatever, but I recommend you stick to the traditional breakfasts of eggs, bacon, sausage, biscuits, hash browns, waffles, pancakes. Don't go for ice cream, strawberry shortcakes, whatever. I get it. No macaroni and cheese. I mean, if it's what you want, knock your lights out. Do what you can. I'd be dead eating freaking ice cream for breakfast. One of my friends would like, "What should I have for breakfast?" Ice cream. I get smacked on the side of the face. One of my friends would be like, "What should I have for breakfast?" Ice cream. Try that again. Ice cream. Try it again. Say ice cream again, I'll whoop your ass. Oh, his would have been a drunk Stewie. Like, what you have for breakfast? Man, what you want to stop drinking so much? That's not breakfast. So stop counting my drinks. And get over here so I can whip you. Yeah, that's right, bitch. Now you're done. So, what's the moral to this story here? The moral of the story is, you can have whatever you want. I guess the moral of the story is, fuck. The moral of the story is you can have whatever you want for breakfast, but it's put the worst foods ever. If you want unhealthy breakfast, have it. Knock your lights out. You want Pop-Tart, knock your lights out. Just remember one thing. Look at the food groups, and parents out there, know your child's taste buds. All right. Let me give you a little go for an update here on Oxford, see if there's anything new. This just in from the Detroit Free Press. The Novi Detroit Catholic Central apologized for a student's post about the Oxford school shooting. The Novi Detroit Central issued an apology on Wednesday for an Instagram story posted by a student Tuesday night mocking the shooting at Oxford High. A student posted a picture of the final score from the Catholic Central boys' soccer account, showing Catholic Central beat Oxford 2-0 in state regional semifinal, saying, "I thought Oxford had shooters." Catholic Central said the incident was addressed to the student body and that they will continue to show support for the current community. The school will not comment on potential the student's age. The post was made nearly 2 years after the day of the school shooting at Oxford High on November 30th. An Oxford student shot and killed 4 students and injured 7 others inside the school. The Instagram was private was Wednesday afternoon. Free Press was able to contact Instagram accounts under, so now I know. We'll be right back. In one of our first survival breaks, this survival break, which I'm not going to show you or play any of the audio. Have you ever heard of songs in real life? It's a basic video skit idea, which every single YouTuber just does something in life that would create like a song. I mean, Steve Cartnell is famous for his songs in real life. His videos have gotten all his songs in real life videos. Each of these videos, all 8 of these videos, 65 million views number 1, 38 million views number 2, 48 million videos for 43 million views number 3. The 4th one had 62 million views. The 5th one had gotten over 600,000 views. 230,000 views for 6, 98,000 for 7. But Steve Cartnell was not the only one. When you research songs in real life, it's not just that. Greg Fox with 4.8 million views. How about McJuggernuggets? Right during Cartnell's time. McJuggernuggets, Jesse Ridgway did his songs about Disney with over 2.6 million views. How about Daniel Hinch? 1.5 million views in 7 years. Then there's this one with Todd Wise. 22 million views in 9 years. Wow. And then there's a spring one from Botoki. 36 million views. But he had more. But there was probably more. When you look him up, he probably had... I think that was it. But if you didn't get the picture here, it's a viral video basically all about real life happening. Like prom or whatever. So if you're looking for a good video to watch, I recommend you look up Songs of Real Life. There's also country music lyrics in real life. With Dirt Road Anthem, 1.8 million views by the channel of John B. Christ. So I recommend giving this a look and a great watch. So because it's the first time of Outbreak we're not showing you this. There's also one from a CHS Red Hot News with over 5.3 million views in 11 years. Motherfucker, that's a lot. Oh, there was the prom one. This was from Emma Rice. 3.2 million views in 10 years. And there's there's one also from Todd Rice, the Christmas one, 4.3 million views. Now again, I would show you all of this, but then I would get copyright claims, a lot of copyright claims. That's what it does. If you do Songs Real Life posts on YouTube, they will come after you with lots of copyright claims. So be careful next time. That's Community Break for this Wednesday going to Thursday. We'll see you again for Throwback Thursday. For all of us here at YouTube, good night.